Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying with us after the screening. We have a Q&A right now with the director, writer, and producer of The Corruption of Divine Providence. Hi, Jeremy. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching the film.
Jeremy, I wanted to start to right off with speaking of where you're based and where you made the film, because I feel like we don't think of Manitoba as a place where filmmakers are. So I was hoping you could speak to that, about why you've decided to base yourself out there and why you decided to shoot your film out there as well.
Sure. Well, originally, I'm from Wajish-Konigam, Donjiba, which is Rat Portage First Nation, 2.5 hours east of Winnipeg. And so for most of my life, our family moved here, and I grew up here in Winnipeg, and have made it my home, and it's the home of my family, of my wife and 4 kids right now. And, you know, we have the largest Indigenous urban population in all of Canada. And so it's just one of these communities that continues to nurture our filmmaking, our creativity, all of those things. Even though we're known for being the murder capital of Canada, that's one
Is
of
that
those
right?
things that we're, yeah, Winnipeg is very violent in a lot of ways due to, you know, systemic racism that's been going on for decades and decades, going back to when Treaty Number 1 was first signed in 1880, I believe. So, you know, that's a whole other story, right? I mean, we're working on a remake of Once Were Warriors, the seminal Maori film. But for now, we're talking about The Corruption of Divine Providence. And that really came about as a result of the fact that my wife, I'm Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, she's Métis. And when we first started dating 19 years ago, I was quite shocked by the overt Catholicism that existed in the rural Métis communities, and not just Métis, but all of the ones that are sort of outside of Winnipeg, particularly in the southwestern region of the province. And so, you know, as I was starting to get to know family and friends and stories in the communities, I was noticing that there was a whole lot of sinning going on, if you catch my drift. And so I thought, this is really interesting. Like, what would happen if we explored a story that sort of questioned, well, what is the role of faith in the Métis community today, and in this particular community that I've fictionalized? And as a result of that, I literally came along and conceived of the idea of a 16-year-old Métis who is struggling with identity, faith, crisis of conscience, is sinning herself in many different ways according to the, you know, the Catholic faith. And I wanted to sort of have a commentary on what faith means to people today, by and large. So you'll have seen that there's various factions that are all sort of vying for her control. And I wanted to do that so that we could have a discussion on what that means to people at large, not just, you know, for Anishinaabe or any other Indigenous faith, but all faiths. Everything that I've always ever been taught is, you know, we're never meant to believe that our faith is any better than anyone else's, and that we should be accepting of any and all. And I think that comes through in the message that Jeanne is meant to convey to the world, her message from God, which is to basically say, you know, religion as a structure has really sort of done a lot of damage over the history of time. But when you strip back the faiths, whether you're Islamic, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're, Christian, no matter what faith, the basic tenets of any faith, there are certain beliefs. And what has happened is they get politicized and we're getting torn apart. So that was kind of what I wanted to do with the overall message of what we were exploring in this story as a real jumping off point, because really we haven't investigated, this type of narrative on the prairies in Western Manitoba, while also incorporating the French language, incorporating Dakota language, incorporating all these different cultures that are happening and continue to exist and thrive within Western Canada.
Now, I wanted to ask you about those religious groups. You have, when I was watching it, I saw 4 main ones, and maybe you could comment on them. There's definitely the Catholicism there, represented by, it's a French community, so that the French influence there. You have the Indigenous people who are there who bring their own faith. Then you have this visitor that comes up from America who you don't quite say what denomination they are, but they are almost, I would say, the television preacher evangelist type faith. And then you have an agnostic faith, the people who even Jean's parents, I would say at the start of the film, seem to not have any faith at all. And maybe you could comment on that interplay as well. There is faith, and then there's the non-believers who it's a faith of its own in a way.
Yeah, for sure. So the charismatic preacher, played by Corey Sevier, has been a longtime friend and collaborator of mine. He's been in 3 different films so far, and I thought he was perfect for the role because he can get into that headspace, and we worked on that a lot and made sure that we would have someone who would be distinct from the other groups. And of course, early on when you see Jeanne in the hospital recovering from her wounds, there's an exchange between the priest and Jeanne, and even though she's wearing the cross, the priest asks her, like, you're wearing this, but you say you don't have any faith and you find all your solace in the garden. So what is that all about? So that was setting things up early on to show the arc of the character and where she needed to go. And as her being the witness through all of these events, she's able to finally find her faith again. And that faith is borrowed from, the Juniper Fairweather character. It's a little bit from the Dakota people, and also from the Catholic community itself. So it's meant to sort of show that there's a journey happening there, and she now believes in something because before she wasn't feeling fulfilled spiritually. And I think that's a message that a lot of people should pay attention to, right? We're all humans who are being, existing, living, and I smudge pretty much every day. I smoke my pipe when I need to. I go to ceremonies, and I don't put that on anybody, but it helps me be a better person, and it grounds me in it, and it reminds me of how I should be as a parent, as a husband, as a filmmaker. And one of the things that I was taught back 20 plus years ago, maybe 27 years ago now, when I first went into the lodge, I was questioning, who am I? Why am I here? What's my role in the universe? And why do I have fair skin? And they said, look, you are Adzuke Wewini, right? Which is a traditional storyteller. You tell the legends, you reinterpret the legends and the stories that are meant to teach lessons to our people. But there's a reason why you have fair skin, is because you are to build the bridges between our community and the non-Indigenous community. And as long as you stay on that path, you will be rewarded for it. And that's something that I have, continued to adhere to. And it's been very fulfilling thus far. This is my 5th feature. I'm going to be doing more going forward. And they cover all sorts of various subject matters. But, this was really interesting to me because of the question of faith without sort of beating people over the head with it.
Right.
You want to sort of let the audiences infer certain things and come to their own conclusions on things, but also hopefully there's a spark somewhere within each person that will make them sort of go, maybe I should re-examine who I am and what faith means to me in today's existence.
That makes me think of 2 things. One being is the story, and I don't know if this was in your mind while you were writing the story. Why now? Why tell the story now? And what is the impact you think of this story on people?
Sure. Well, one of the elders that I've dealt with a lot over the years in different projects is Dave Kershane Jr., and he's just north of Winnipeg at Sagin First Nation. And I had done a previous film called Path of Souls that is, done very well. It's on various networks and, was shown in probably 25 plus festivals worldwide, won a few film awards, but it never really went anywhere. And the reason that I did that film back then was I was just starting my family, and I was reminded that I could go at any time. Nobody knows when Creator is going to call you to the happy hunting grounds, as we describe it in our language and in our teachings. So I wanted to leave them with something that was going to tell the story and say, this is what Dad represented, should anything have ever happened. Or when they grow up, they can say at that point in time, this is what Dad's values were. And that was happening at a time when Dave basically said, there's a new consciousness that is coming to the world. If you sort of recall, I think the Mayan calendar, everyone sort of prophesized the end of the world was 2012 and everything. And in fact, he said that was not a correct interpretation of what that prophecy was. It was, we are entering into a new world, a new cycle that has a new consciousness where people are going to become more spiritually aware. And that always stuck with me. And so, these things have taken a long, long time to get the writing through various phases of development, and then to apply and get the funding, and then get into production, and ultimately completed with all the visual effects and everything else, and have it to the point where it's a world premiere here. And that's something that I feel really great about, because I do want to present this to the world so that they can decide for themselves what they think about this kind of thing. That's just what I do. I want to get it out there so that we can all talk. I remember growing up in a day and age where we used to go to movies and then people would actually go out and discuss them. We don't really do that anymore. So, hopefully this will create a little bit of dialogue.
I mean, I do find it striking. I mean, that not a lot of filmmakers really delve into religion a lot. There's a few, Martin Scorsese had a film a couple of years back that dealt with religion and someone's personal faith, but I find they're few and far between. So I thought it was interesting right now to see that. I almost didn't know how to categorize the film, outside of a drama. Does this fall into another kind of genre? Especially, everyone has seen the film right now, so I'm not, this isn't a spoiler alert, but you open with that scene where she is having that stigmatic experience. So when the film opens and I didn't know a thing about the film, I was watching it blind. I wasn't sure what kind of genre I was entering into. So that's just me commenting on that. I mean, obviously you thought this through of opening with a scene like that without viewers knowing what they're walking into. You're not exactly sure what you're watching when you in the first few minutes of the film. And I thought that was interesting. And maybe you can talk to why it's structured that way. If you had given thought to how you were leading people into the viewer experience.
Yeah, well, truth be told, the opening didn't happen that way. When I wrote it, when we shot it, and even my first cut. But in the world of collaboration, you need to have other eyes on things. And my editor, Jeff Klein, out of Montreal, he totally reshaped it. And they opened with that. And at first I was like, whoa, well, this is not a horror. And even though The Exorcist is my all-time favorite film,
really?
I didn't necessarily go for that. You know, it would have been a totally different film, I think, tonally, had I gone in that direction as more of a horror, which is interesting unto itself. But, you know, after watching it a little bit, and my wife, who is also a producer on the film, we watched it and we sort of went, wow, you know, it really does move along, and it allows us to sort of still follow the story. Yeah, there were some scenes that we had to take out because chronologically they didn't fit, and there's some incredible lines that I wish we could have kept, but that's the nature of editing. But overall, that was what they felt would work best. And of course, I'm doing this in conjunction with the distributor, which is Film Option out of Montreal, and they believe that at the end of the day, right, we want people to watch the film. We want them to support Indigenous filmmaking, and so that we can demonstrate to Telefilm and the other funders out there that our stories can do well at the box office and or on the OTTs, you know, the pay-per-view opportunities, all of those things, so that we can continue to tell our stories and get more funding for our stories. Because for so long we have been told, not just by the powers that be, the broadcasters and the larger distributors, oh, well, you know, that's an interesting story, but it's not mainstream enough. And, you know, in order for us to put up our MG and for us to come on board to complete the financial package so that we can get into production, we need to believe that something's going to happen as far as making our money back, right? If they're putting up a minimum guarantee, they don't just want to make the money back, they actually want to make money at it. So there's this convergence of art versus commerce, and we have to sort of find our way in there while being cultural and while you're packaging this overall story of some spirituality and bigger questions. You know, we got to do it in a way that is going to be palatable, right? At the end of the day, everyone has choice. Every single person who tuned in to watch the film is going to seek it out in the future. They have a choice over what they're going to watch. And I want them to see our film, and I want them to think about it.
Well, it definitely captures your attention, and you're maybe not sure what you're watching at first, but I thought that was an interesting way to begin, because you're almost having a visceral reaction from the get-go. So I did think that was an interesting choice, and it's I like that it was a collaborative experience. Sometimes an editor will see something that you may not see in your own film, and I think it's really interesting that you then went that way. We're coming close to our time, and I wondered if you did, we've talked about religion a lot and we can't escape it, but your next film, did you say also deals with spirituality in a way? Or if you could speak to that, because I'm interested that, like I said before, there's not a lot of filmmakers, I think, that would define themselves in a certain genre, especially dealing with spirituality and religion. I think it's rare.
Mm-hmm. Well, in fact, we have 2 films that are coming up. I had mentioned Once Were Warriors, which is the remake of the Maori classic from 1993. And I've had the remake rights for that for the last 8 years. And so we've been going through multiple phases. And one of the things that I thought, because everyone's sort of like, oh my God, it's like Criterion Collection. It's almost untouchable as a film.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of disagreed, because I said there were some missed opportunities there. And one of which was this young man who ends up going into the foster care system. And he's missing strong male role models who will teach him how to be a good Anishinaabe, how to be a good man, right? How to be a good warrior, and Ogitchida in our language. And that didn't happen because, of course, Jake is on his own path. But what we're doing here in this one of the things we're doing is I'm actually introducing a Maori character who is like a gang liaison, and he takes him to an elder, as well as a traditional teacher of the mixed martial arts that have been combat techniques that have been used on the prairies for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So there's all this other stuff that's going on to sort of say, okay, we have this structure of Once Were Warriors, but we're also getting a spiritual teaching in here as well, because to truly heal as people, we need to be able to deal with the mind, body, and spirit. And, you know, for those who maybe remember the story or the book, you know, the young girl commits suicide, and it's very, very devastating. So we need to provide hope, not just of the woman walking away at the end, finally finding the courage to walk away at the end. We want more hope in the young man who is making a choice to not go down the lifestyle of gangs and all that urban violence that I mentioned earlier. We are, you know, we're called Murder Peg for a reason, right? And I wanted to be able to deal with that. So that's one project. The other project is one called Shaidan, and it's a international co-production with South Africa. And that was, yeah, so it's a really cool story in that it's just your typical action movie. And I haven't done action before, but I love the fact that there's action in there. But what I did do was we've introduced a spirit that is sort of, the idea is, you know, there's a JTF team goes into the jungle to rescue these Doctors Without Borders who have been kidnapped, and they're being held for ransom. And so when they go into the jungle to recover these people and hopefully save their lives, they realize that something is in the jungle and it's stalking them. So we go into a much deeper story, and one of the characters is Native. One of the lead characters is Native, and he knows something is going on here, and he has to sort of deal with that. So I'm super excited about that film, because that will be like, there'll be a Cowboys and Indians moment where the Indians win. And that's really great, because of course, you know, history according to Hollywood has been the Cowboys are always winning. So for us to actually have a win, I think Indigenous people worldwide are going to cheer that film. So, and there's an element of spirituality in there. So it's packaged in an action film, but the nuance of who I am and what I'm all about in this lifetime is reflected in that story.
Those both sound like very exciting projects, and I wish you luck. I can't wait to read about them and see them. And whenever you could get back into production, I guess we're all waiting to see when that happens. Thank you, Jeremy Torrie. That was great.
Miigwech.